Hello everyone, I hope you're all having a good day. I'm Benjamin from James Studios, and welcome back to another episode. In today's episode, we're going to be showcasing one of the features of a 2D platformer, which is wall jump. You can see this all over in many different platformer games, and you can see right here I have created a little test that we can run to make sure that our wall jump is working correctly. So without further ado, let's just hop right into some testing really quickly. So what I want to do, show off real quick, is there's a built-in function for the physics body 2Ds here, the kinematic body 2Ds, and that is on wall. But we do not want to actually use it, and I will show you why. We're going to show off the print. This is a Boolean output, so it's either going to return true or false if it is on wall. I'm going to play this, and we're going to run. You can see right now we are not on a wall, so it's outputting false. We then run up to a wall, and I'm holding down right. You can see that I'm still running. Now I'm not. Still running, not. And let's run into a wall. I'm running into it. You can see that it's true, but as soon as I let go and we stand still, it's now false. That right there is why we don't want to use is on wall. Because imagine where we jump, we want to get onto this wall, and we have to hold down that right key if we want to hug this right wall. If I let go, it then starts to become false. And we don't want that. We want to be able to just glide down walls without holding the key. So that is why we do not want to use is on wall. So we're just going to get rid of that. And instead we have to use a different method. And that method is going to be using raycasting. So let's open up our player script here and create a raycast 2D node we're going to call wall checker. And you want to come over here, you want to make sure that you enable it. Make sure that the casting is just right outside of your collision body, and make sure that the collision mask is on wherever your walls are. So my walls are environment. Make sure that it's not on player, because then you always will be on a wall. You want to make sure that it collides with the walls. And just for point of view for raycasting, I believe, if I am correct here, that raycasting will cast up right to this point, right before the triangle of the point. Not the point of the triangle, but before at the base of the triangle. That's where it would cast to. Once you have all the specified, and you're going to also need the rotation degrees to be -90. If your player is pointing to the right, if he's pointing to the left, it's going to be 90 degrees. And we'll be messing with the rotation degrees in our script here, because we only want to create one. It would be much easier to rotate it in the script than making two. And with all of these specifications, we can then go back to our player script here, scroll down, and we're going to create this function called isNearWall. And this basically just checks if our wall checker, our raycasting, is colliding. And that just returns true or false if it is colliding with a wall or anything of the environment that it collides with. And so now let's check this. Let's go back up to where we had that print statement. So is near wall. There we go. We'll print that return of is colliding. So you can see right now that it is false. It is outputting false. We run up to the wall. We're still running. It's true. Now I let go, and it continues to be true. So if we jump and we start sliding on the wall, I am not holding any buttons. It just remains true the entire time. And that's exactly what we want. So this is the perfect function. This is the perfect solution to that problem. So now that we have a way to actually get to a wall state, which is the next thing we're going to be doing, is creating this State.WALL. This is going to be a new state in our enum that we have up here, the air, the floor, the wall. And this is how we're going to control how we're going to be jumping off the walls. Because we don't want to be using these scripts This is the floor, this is the air. We don't want to be using those. We're going to have our own functions for our wall, even though here you see that it's very small. This is how we're going to switch out of the state wall. I'll get further detail into that later, but we want to take a look at this function, this section of code right here. We have input is action up. So are we jumping off of the wall? That's what this is saying here. This is for later purposes. I'll get into more detail as to what this is all about. And then down here, we have is action left pressed or is action right pressed? Is action right? Oh, okay. It's a little finicky here. So is action right pressed or is action left pressed? And then we have a variable called direction. Now direction is used for which way our player is facing. If it's 1, we're moving to the right. And if it's -1, we are moving to the left. And so this will also help us determine which direction we're going, so which direction our wall checker should be facing, which in turn will help us which direction to jump off of, because if our direction is -1 and we press left, that doesn't do anything. We don't want it to do anything, because that means you're still jumping into the wall, and we don't really want to jump into the wall. It doesn't make sense. We also don't want our players to climb the wall, which is what this will do later, but I'll get into that more detail. And so when we have this massive line of code, at least the up, the jump up, the left, the direction, the right, and the direction, we still have a wall jump. And we can use the velocity, set the velocity x, set it to some jump away force times the direction, but the negative direction, and then velocity times, or the velocity equals the negative jump force if your jump force is positive. Since my jump force is positive, then we want it to be negative. And whatever basically this is up here should be the same as this down here. You can always change, you can always do multiplying times 0.5, 0.7, 0.2, whatever. I'm going to leave mine as just a regular jump off the wall there. And so when we jump off the wall, we're also not on the wall anymore, so we're going to want to change the state back to state in air, because we are now in the air. And that is how we would jump off the wall there. And I did mention direction earlier. Now we have that variable set up here up top, and since our player is facing to the right, we want it to be 1, because 1 equals right, -1 equals left. But how do we change that back and forth? Well, now we have a new function that we're going to set up here called set direction. This function will flip direction back and forth depending on the sprite.fliph value. So we're setting direction 1. If sprite.fliph, or if not fliph, so that means this is, if it's false, then we want it to be -1. So if it's to the left, it is -1. And then, as I said before, we're rotating that wall checker to the other side, back and forth, depending on which direction our player is facing, so that the raycasting can still be correct for the wall jumps up top. Now let's go put this set direction. Let's go put it here on the floor and here for the air, right above the move and fall functions for both of them. And when that is set up, we should be good for direction. But now let's think what we want for our walls. If you jump on a wall in any of the other platforming games, you can tell that they go down the wall much more slowly than when you just jump in the air. So that's what we're going to work on next. And our gravity, where we're controlling that, is our move and fall function. That's where we have our velocity y plus plus equals gravity. This is where we're actually applying it. So this is where we're going to want to start changing some things up. And we're putting in a parameter here called grav factor, our gravity factor. This is how we're going to control how much gravity we're going to be using. So we're multiplying it by gravity. For our wall, I just have it as 0.5. For everything else, floor and the air, it's just 1. We want to make sure gravity stays the same the entire time in those two because that's what we have for it. And the only place where we want gravity to be less is when we're on the wall still. And with that, we should be good to go with the wall state. Now we just have to flip back and forth between our states here to actually make it a proper state machine. So let's start when we're on the floor. If we run up to a wall, are we gonna be in the state of wall? We do not want to be in the state of wall if we just run up to it, because then things start to get messing up. Because if you jump and go backwards, then you get this weird jumping thing. We don't want that. So we just want to be not messing with the wall on the floor. So we're not going to mess with anything here. Instead, we're going to go to state air. So when we're in the air and we hit a wall, we should change to the state of wall. So that's what we're going to have here. We have if is on floor continue, it's the floor. And we have continue here, which will cut out the rest of this stuff and go straight to that state of floor. And now we have an elif here, is near wall. So if we are in the air and we are near the wall, we want to then change to the state of wall. Our velocity now becomes 0. We don't want to go up any more than we have to. Because when I was actually creating this earlier, I did have it to where our player would jump on the wall and he would fly up. I mean, really fly up. I even had it to where I ran my player up right against the wall, just so enough that I could still jump and use all my momentum and everything. And he flew up there. It was so funny. He was flying. He became an astronaut that day. And that's why we're setting velocity.y to 0 and having that continue, so we go straight to the state of wall. Then we should come, now we have all of our code to go into the state of wall. How do we get out of the state of wall? And that is this right here. So if we're on the wall and we're sliding down and we reach the floor, we want to go back to the floor state. And then once we are not is near wall, so we just jumped off of it, then our state then becomes the state of air. And we have continue, so we don't run this stuff. We also have state of air here, and this is just to be sure, just in case that this doesn't work, that we still go to the state of air anyways. And I don't really have continue because it's just one line of code down here. It's not really that big of a deal, so it's fine. Other than that, we now can move in and out of our state machine. We now have our wall function working fine. Now let's go and test it out. So we can run around, we then jump, and we can jump back and forth on the wall, and we slide down the wall rather smoothly. Looks really nice, really clean. And we can jump up, and there's a coin waiting for us right here. And let me just collect that and slide down perfectly safe. OSHA's not coming for us. And the thing that I had, you saw last jump direction, if you've seen that around my code, that is the next thing, because there's one more thing we should do before we end this video off, and that would be people can become acrobatic. I don't think I can do it with the code that I have. I think let me hold on, let me try. Oh no, we can't. Okay, I didn't think my values were like that, so as you saw there, we can just climb the wall without even jumping on that other wall there, and we do not want players to do that. We want them to just jump off, and they have to jump off then another wall to then be able to it. So they cannot do 2 times or 3 times on the same wall. They can only do one jump on one wall until they either hit the ground or they jump off another wall. So that was the last jump direction I have here. You can see that we're going to uncomment this line here, where we set that last jump direction to the direction we just had, which would be 1 or -1. And we want to make sure that this is what this does here, that they do not equal. If they do equal, then we don't want to run this. We're just going to slide down the wall smoothly. And when we set this equal, we want it to be able to actually go back to 0, because there will be problems. If you jump off the wall, land, whatever, do yada, 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 the only way to actually flip it is to jump on another wall. So we want to make sure that the last jump direction gets reset whenever we switch out of the wall function, or the state of wall. So when we go to the floor, we want it to be 0. When we go to the air, we want it to be 0. And we come back up through here in the air, and when we go from the air to the floor, we want it to be 0 as well. And that's the only places that we do have it at 0, because that's the only where we need it, where we actually set those parameters that I talked about earlier. If you're either on the floor or you jump off the wall, another wall, then we want it to be 0 or flip directions, yada, yada, yada. And without further ado, we're going to run this one last time, and I will show you that you can now not do that. You can slide, you just slide off the wall. I can't do it unless I start wall jumping the right way. And you can see if I jump off that wall, land, I can do it again. I can show you guys if I comment that does not work. So let's jump off the wall. Oh, my bad. Hold on. That's not it. I need this one. This is very important because we go from wall to air to then floor, and now I can't jump on it again. It's very finicky, but I can't. It doesn't work all the time, is what I'm trying to get at. Uncomment that, and we'll be able to wall jump again every time. So thank you guys for sticking around to the end of the episode. I hope you all have a good day. If you like the content that I create here, please like, comment, subscribe. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, don't be afraid. Put them down below. But this has been Ben Jammin from Jammin Studios.